Movie House Cinemas, proud sponsors of Conversations with Gerry Kelly. Treat yourself to a movie. Relax in VIP recliner seating without the VIP price tag. At Cityside, Glengormley, Mackara and Coleraine. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to Conversations with me, Gerry Kelly. I first met my guest tonight when he was a young 19-year-old Dublin kid who had just joined a boy band. That boy band was Westlife. And here we are, 26 years later, and just look at what they've achieved. 14 number one singles, 33 number one albums, numerous tours in every corner of the world, and record sales in excess of 55 million. Among the many accolades they've received are 1 World Music Award, 2 Brit Awards, 4 MTV Awards, and 4 Record of the Year awards. I'm delighted to welcome, and still looking like that 19-year-old kid, Nicky Byrne.
Jerry, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Great to see. I mean it. You're still looking as youthful as you ever did.
I don't know, but I don't feel it. I don't feel it. But yeah, it's 26 years. Wow. It's.
Do you remember those first days? Do you remember coming up to the Kelly show and the early days, and all the kids outside waiting to see this new group, Westlife? Could you have imagined then, Nicky, that 26 years later, you guys would still be touring the world?
Definitely no is the quick answer. It kind of went, it was like a roller coaster up and down throughout those years. Obviously we did 14 years straight. Had a wonderful experience from 98 right up to 2012. And then we kind of went off and did our own things, and I was on radio and TV and I did Eurovision, different things. And then we came back, and we always knew when we left it in 2012, we always knew there was a great fan base there. We all cried. We finished a world tour in Croke Park. It was the last show. And we knew that there would probably still be a bit of love there. So we did the reunion, which went huge. We completed that, then COVID kicked in. And when that kind of subsided, we did one more tour. And then we kind of haven't toured now for 4 years. And then we announced stuff, obviously, a few months back, and it just went crazy again. So to answer your question, no, I remember coming up up north to UTV to do your show on many occasions. Some nights we were flying back to England, some nights we were back down to Dublin, and there would be hundreds, if not thousands, of girls screaming outside the TV centre, the airports, the hotels if we were staying. We got no sleep. It was, it's hard to believe it goes so quickly.
As a young 19 or 20-year-old, Nicky, how did that make you feel? Like you've screaming young girls your age, baying your name, shouting your name out. You must have felt, I can do no wrong here.
I don't know if we felt you do no wrong. I think we did genuinely take it in our stride, and we never, ever really, ever took it for granted. We were that band that we always wanted to know where we were in the charts. We always wanted to know how much we'd sold, who was ahead of us, who was behind us, could we catch them? We realised quickly it was a business, even though it's far, you're a pop star, all your dreams come true. Yeah. But we were very much hands on deck as well. We controlled our own ship as much as we could. Now we do it completely 100% now ourselves. But I even think at 18, 19, 20, I was 19, I was the oldest. Mark, I think, is the youngest, and he was 17.
Yes.
And we all were very much on top of what we were doing. Now, of course, we made mistakes and different things, but certainly we knew once we broke quickly. We had great songs. Again, we were very lucky, and we always put, it's all about right place, right time.
Yeah.
But we also have to give ourselves a little credit where we grabbed what we were given, and we didn't let anybody else take over from us.
But you came on the heels of Boyzone, and there were certain people who thought, there's no way lightning is going to strike twice in Ireland. We're not going to get 2 boy bands out of here. You guys never felt that way?
I did when I first joined the guys, because Boyzone were so big globally. I grew up as, obviously, sport was my background. My sister was a big a-ha fan. She's 2 years older. She loved a-ha, she loved Bros. And she kind of dipped in and out of Take That and New Kids on the Block at that time. But I remember E17 and Take That. I remember being in my, being as a football player, and I played in the Milk Cup a few times. But I remember thinking, Take That, that would be amazing. I mean, when Boyzone launched, I was too young for Boyzone. But I was also signing for Leeds United, so I wasn't really, I probably wouldn't have went to that audition anyway. But when we got in with Louis and Westlife, I thought, well, we'll never outdo what Boyzone did. And so it just exploded. Like, I mean, globally exploded. We not only, and I hate to say this, we not only outdid that, we were all of a sudden bigger than Take That, and we were up there with the Backstreet Boys and the American boy bands. It was a very, very surreal time.
Well, which begs the question, what's the key? What was the key to your success?
I don't know if there is a key. I think it's timing. I think it's Louis was, obviously Boyzone were going on sabbatical. Ronan was going solo. And I think Louis maybe saw an opportunity where he said, right, I'm going to continue managing Ronan, and I'm going to try and start another band. And the thing about Louis, I don't know if he's that calculated or planned. Louis probably does things, off the cuff a little bit. And really a lot of the early days success was down to Shane's mom, who's from a small town in Sligo called Kilchimot, which is where, Mayo, Kilchimot, where Louis is from. And to this day, we know that there must have been thousands of people phoning Louis' office, and he probably didn't answer any of them. And then this one woman, May Foylan, obviously didn't give up. And I think Louis answered that call because he didn't want people back in his hometown going, oh, he's changed. That guy from Kilchimot now manages Boyzone. So he took the call. But then when he met Shane and the lads, he knew straight away that they were different. I mean, I go on record, I always say, Shane and Mark have the best pop voices of any boy band of any generation. They're better, the two lads, and I'm lucky to be in the band with those two. Because I'm a football background, I always equate it to, I'm in a band with Ronaldo and Messi. We have the two of them in our band. And they were world class. And I think then when you put, the rest of us together, we literally could harmonise. Yeah. And then Simon Kell came to Dublin and he signed us. He listened. Louis got him in. We had a week of auditions, and I always remember there was Polydor, there was BMG, which was Simon at the time, and there was, I think it might have been Universal. And Louis really wanted Polydor because they had Virgin. Louis really wanted Virgin because they had the Spice Girls. And our first audition was for Virgin, and they turned us down. And we'd rehearse all week. We did the audition, which was probably 40 minutes on stage. All these Virgin kind of executives were over at the Pod nightclub in Dublin, and they just turned us down. They were very nice to us and chatted to us. Louis came in the dressing room afterwards and said they've said no.
Oh wow!
And that was the first kick in the teeth because we thought we were brilliant. We thought, oh well, everyone's going to say yes, and they didn't. So we did 2 days then for more rehearsals before Simon Kell flew in, and he flew in. But you got to remember Simon was an executive at BMG Records. He wasn't famous. We didn't know him.
Yeah, he wasn't the mogul that he is today.
He looked like Action Man. This guy, the Action Man doll. Yeah. With the haircut and,
yes.
Very suave. Very London. We knew he was he had a presence. There was no X Factor at this point. And after 40 seconds, he told Louis, "I want to sign this band." He had the boy band Five, and they had been around about a year, and they were like kind of the tough lads, and they had a bit more street cred about them, and he wanted to do ballads with Westlife, and he put us in with Steve Mack and Wayne Hector, and of course Steve wrote "Fly Me the Wings," "Swear It Again," "World of Our Own." It just went, and what he did beautifully was he got Steve and Wayne in London, and he got Max Martin and Chiron Studios in Sweden, and those guys were writing "Baby One More Time" for Britney, "Bye Bye Bye" for NSYNC, "I Want It That Way" for Backstreet Boys, amongst many, many others. So they did like "When You're Looking Like That," "If I Let You Go," the songs that had a bit of tempo, and then the lads in London did the ballads. And that's where I think it's timing and luck and all of that. But I think we could back it up. And then internally, we didn't let the original arguments that happen inevitably every day.
Well, yeah, I want to get on to that, because once you started to hit the big time, fame, like for the first thing, privacy goes out the door. How did you cope with, you hadn't got a private life anymore, and how do you still cope with it now that you're married with 3 children?
I think, again, we rolled with the punches. I think it was a different time. I think we come from a generation, well, I know I saw something on Instagram recently and it resonated, where anybody born between, I think it's 1960 and right up to 89, have lived very different lives to the people born, post 89, because the way the world changed, the way the internet happened, the way phones are in your hand, the way and it totally transcended or got way different as we go. So there was no camera phones, there was none of that. Everybody wanted an autograph, but there was the screaming girls, there was the privacy went, the press got obviously, I guess, straight onto us all. And I was obviously, I was dating Bertie Ahern's daughter at that point, who was, when I started dating her, he was Minister for Finance. And then just as Westlife started, he became Taoiseach. Yeah. So, there was huge
scrutiny.
Interest.
You must have been under huge
Well,
scrutiny.
there was, and there was lots of things, even from a security perspective, that I never spoke about, that I probably, maybe one day when I write my memoirs, I'll talk about, particularly being the Taoiseach of Ireland, and the Good Friday Agreement was happening at that time, and, I'd grown up in the 70s, born in 78 and through all the 80s, and, particularly the landscape of this island. So yeah, there was some tricky moments, but I think you just rolled with it, because for me personally, I wasn't political, I wasn't involved in any of that. I was in a pop band, I was a pop star, I was living any young boy's boy and girl's dream. And I think, we kind of ignored a lot of the stuff that might have been written badly about us. There wasn't a lot, to be fair. I think the media were good to us.
Well, I want to get onto that, because with the fame also comes temptation. Drink, drugs, women, whatever. How did you guys remain so firm on the floor with your feet?
I don't know if it's an Irish thing. I genuinely think none of us wanted to let our parents down. None of us wanted to be that story on the front of the newspaper, particularly in the UK, where maybe the red tops were I'm imagining it a little bit nastier or a little bit more intrusive. We were good boys, but we also drank, and we also fell out of nightclubs, and we never did drugs, but we loved the drink. That was our rock and roll, and we always used to joke, yeah, well, if you think you could beat us in a drinking contest, let's do it. We sang at Colleen and Wayne Rooney's wedding many years ago, but I always remember we were doing maybe 40 minutes. It was a surprise for Wayne. We thought the surprise was for Colleen. It wasn't. It was for Wayne. And we got him up on stage and he sang with us. And then we did our job and we went to leave. And Wayne said, no, you got to stay. You got to stay with us. And so we ended up being at the wedding then. And then Wayne's brother gets involved, younger lad from Liverpool. And he's like, right, you lads are going to drink. See if you can drink us, So I was like, hang on a minute. We've got 4 Irish lads and a load of Liverpudlians here. This is not going to end well. And it was. We put our best foot forward, which was Keane. He was always our best drinker. So Keane, get in there and show the Liverpudlians how to do it. But it was fun, shots at the bar, and what a great night that was. But that was us. We had fun. We as I said, we fell out of many nightclubs around the world. We did appear on front pages of many articles, shall I say. But that was pretty much it. That's as far as it went,
Yeah. You take everything so easily now, and you name drop because you do know all these people. It's not that it's name dropping, but you've taken it all on board so easy. But your origins would have been much more humble than all that.
Yeah, I'm from Baldoyle in North Dublin. As I said, football was my thing growing up. My dad was in the cabaret business. He was a singer in a cabaret band called Nicky and Studs. So my entire life was my dad. He was a painter and decorator by trade. So he'd get in at 6 in the evening or whatever, and he'd be covered in paint, head to toe, overalls, you name it. And there was this, I don't know if they still use it now, it's probably health and safety don't allow, but turps. He'd wash his hands in turps in the sink, he'd clean his face, and he'd run upstairs, he'd scoff his dinner, and then he'd come down looking like he was presenting Strictly Come Dancing. Saturday nights it'd be a red suit with a red bow tie. Sunday nights was blue. Tuesday night he'd be doing a dinner dance or a wedding, and he'd be black. He was Mr. Entertainer. I've never said this to Robbie Williams actually, but I see a lot of similarities with Robbie's family growing up, because his dad I think was similar and did all the kind of show bands around in I think in Stoke or whatever, Manchester, and that was very much my background in terms of that. So it was always in my DNA. But when football didn't happen for me and this audition came up and I went for it, and I grabbed it with both hands, and I thought, well, the football didn't work out. I always had this burning desire to change my life, my family's life, and if I could, so it wasn't to be famous, but I kind of felt, and back then maybe I was wrong. Well, you have to be really good at something, but if you can be really good at it and become famous and become well known, if you can get out of Ireland and get to the UK, if you get out of the UK and get to Europe, if you can get to the world, I think you have to be delusional. I think you have to have delusional thinking. And I think I did. I genuinely, looked in the mirror and would be grabbing a bottle of deodorant and pretend and rapping to E17 songs and singing Take That songs. And in karaoke, I'd be impersonating Ronan Keating and singing the Boyzone songs. So when I got the audition opportunity, I was nearly ready to a degree, not ready for the world, but ready to get into that band.
Was there a gap between coming back from Leeds and the football club to Westlife? What was that gap? And I know you played football back here, but did you work at anything else during those years?
So I came back from Leeds my contract expired in May 95.
Was that a huge disappointment?
Sorry, May 97, sorry.
Was that a huge disappointment to you?
Yeah, that was a kick. That was a kick. I had football was everything to me. I'd been lucky to play for a club in Dublin called Home Farm for 10 years, and then a club called St Kevin's for 1 year. And I'd represented Dublin under 12 and 13 level. Actually played up in Belfast against a Man United Belfast selection outside Windsor Park when we were about 13. There's a picture somewhere. I've seen it recently. And then I played for the Republic of Ireland under 15s, 16s, 18s. My debut for Ireland under 15 was against Switzerland. My second game was against Northern Ireland in Clannyboy Park in Bangor. And we drew 1-1. And I got absolutely clattered in that game. Came out for a cross. I held on to it. I held it, but some guy from Northern Ireland absolutely nailed me. I played on, but my knee was bad, and I came off about 60, 70 minutes, and we drew the game 1-1. But anyway, went to Leeds, 2 years at Leeds, and I was only about 3 months at the club, 2 months at the club, and there was a sending off. Mark Beanie, he was the reserve Premier League goalkeeper. John Lukage was the first team keeper. Beanie was the reserve. He got sent off in a reserve game, which meant he was suspended. And the third choice was a guy called Paul Pettinger, and he'd won the Youth Cup. He was older than me, obviously. He'd won the Youth Cup at Leeds a few years previous against that golden generation of Man United class of 92. And Pet was out on loan at Rotherham, so they couldn't get him back. So they went to the youth team. I was, first up. I was 16 and a half, and I was travelling down with the first team in the Premier League game against Southampton away. So 6 hours down, 5 or 6 hours on the bus down from Leeds, stay over. So that Leeds team, for any footballers or people who will remember, was Gary Speed, Gerry Kelly,
the big names.
Tony Aboa, Gary McAllister. What a team. And I was in that squad for one game.
Wow.
I never quite made the bench because I was a little unlucky that was the year the Premier League changed the rules where you didn't have to name a goalkeeper on the bench. And so instead of naming 2 outfield and 1 sub, it was 3 subs at the time. He named 3 outfield players. So yeah, missed that.
Why did you have to leave? Injury? There was an injury?
No, I was a goalkeeper. And I'm just 5'10".
Oh, you were too small.
Too small.
Oh.
Yeah, too small. In height. But look, it worked out for me.
Well, do you believe in destiny? Do you believe in fate? Do you believe that's the way it was supposed to be?
I do, but I still hold a grudge.
Of course you do.
I do, because football is my thing. And, we'd spend 2 episodes of your show talking about goalkeeping and football. But, I was obviously too small to be a goalkeeper in the Premier League at 5'10", we'll say. But still, I would look at Andy Gorham at Rangers, who was 5'10". Now, Andy was a big guy width-wise, but he was an excellent goalkeeper at Rangers. And then there was people like Iker Casillas years later at Real Madrid. He's about 5'11". Barthez at United was 5'9". So there was the exceptions, and there was said to me when I was leaving Leeds, go to the continent, go to Spain, go to Italy, where it's a little more about ability and less about physicality. But I didn't want to risk that.
Okay, so it was fate, and all of a sudden Westlife appeared. You're married today, 3 children. You have 2 sons, twin sons, Rocco and Jay. They're 18 plus, and they're roughly the same age now as you were when you went into Westlife. If they came to you tomorrow morning and said, "Dad, I'm thinking of joining a boy band and I'm going to go off for a while," what would you say?
I don't know. I'd never stand in their way. I present a podcast, and I ask that question to many, many people who come on my show, particularly music people who've lived it. I suppose, yeah, I'd encourage it to a degree, but I think we we looked at everything we did very carefully. So I don't think you can go in with your eyes closed. I think the risks that you spoke about 10 minutes ago, you've got to be able to navigate those waters as best you can. So you hope and you give your kids the best. People can be unlucky as well. You can go for that dream and it might not work out for you. But if they really, really wanted to do it, not just because dad did it and, it'll be easy, or I'll get an opportunity, or dad'll help. If they really wanted to do that, then I wouldn't step in their way. No matter what they wanted to do, I wouldn't step in their way.
When did they first see you on stage, and what did they think? Was it embarrassment? Were they mortified at the start, and how do they feel about it all now?
It's a good question, because we've gone full circle. So when they were very young, Westlife split the day before they started primary school. So on the very last show of my Westlife career in 2012, I had to get up the next morning. We went to an after party till 4 a.m, and then myself and Jordina got up at 7 a.m, 3 hours sleep, straight to bring them started. That was their graduation of Montessori, and then 2 months later they started secondary school, or primary school. Sorry. They wouldn't have. They vague memories of that. They were on the DVD in Croke Park and stuff like that, but they were 4.5, 5. Through the next 5 or 6 years, they would have Googled, when they got into YouTube or whatever, started Googling stuff. And I was on the radio back on 2FM, so Dad was still in the public eye, and people would still, ask me for pictures and stop me in the street because of Westlife fame and other things. And I remember when they were very young, they said, "Dad, why do people ask you for pictures every day?" And the only way I could describe, I said, "I'm like, do you know Mickey Mouse?" Because they were mad into kind of Mickey Mouse, and they were like, "Yeah." And I said, "It's like that when people see Mickey Mouse, they come over." It was the first thing I could think of to try and explain it. And then years later, I went into a shop in Dublin, and the two lads were fighting, and they were going at each other. They're probably about 10 at this point, and maybe 9 or whatever, and they were having an argument, and I was like, "Lads, will you stop?" And there was loads of people looking, and I don't know if you've had that experience, Gerry, where you have a recognisable face, and then you're having one of those moments where you're living real life for a moment, and you're like, "Lads, will you shut up?" And they wouldn't, and we walked around the shop, and as I got back into the car, I said, "Lads," I said, "can you imagine Messi trying to deal with his 2 sons fighting while everybody's looking at him?" And the lads went, "Dad, come on. You're not Messi." And that kind of brought me back down to earth pretty quickly. But but they then saw the reunion when they were 15. And then Gia had been born then, because Gia's 6 years younger than them. So she didn't see any of the first. She was born in 2013, a year after the band split. And then we got together in 19. She would have obviously seen that. We've done 2 tours since that. So
did they have a hard time at school because they were Nicky Byrne's children?
No, I don't think they had a hard time, no. I think they would have always gotten comments. They were always well equipped to be able to deal with stuff.
Listening to you talk, Nicky, family is obviously the most important thing in your life.
100%, yeah. And sometimes I think about that, because the 3 of them, I'm their dad, and Bertie Ahern's their granddad, and Cecilia Ahern, the author, is my wife's sister. Yeah. So they have all that going on where people will and do make comments, So, but they know how to deal with it. I think they're well equipped.
We've talked all this. We haven't even mentioned 2026 and Westlife's reunion tour, the 25th anniversary.
How exciting is this?
What's all happening for the rest of the year?
So we got together in 98, and 27 years now pretty much together. But the first tour wasn't until 2001. So 2026, is 2001. So this year is 25 years.
Have I got it right? You're doing 7 nights here.
Yeah, 7 or 8.
It's 7 or 8
in the SSE. Yeah.
How many are you doing down south?
13 in Dublin.
13.
Yeah, I don't know how many in England, Scotland, and Wales. I think it's 3 Londons, 3 Birminghams, 3 Manchesters. There's like 2 Newcastles, 1 Leeds, 1 Sheffield, 2 Sheffield. It's crazy. 2 or 3 Cardiffs, and that's before we get her into continental Europe, where we're doing Paris, Antwerp. I could list the countries off. It's Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Amsterdam, Germany, Holland.
Are you up for this? You're 47 years of age.
I know, but I don't know about that. I don't know.
Are you fit enough for this?
Look, yeah, it's ironically, touring is actually not the worst. Rehearsing for the tour can be very hard because you're doing it every day. When you get on tour, the show is in the evening time, so you have your life that morning in the local city. I usually like to get up and train, have breakfast, myself and one of the security lads will go wandering around the
Okay.
local city or whatever, and then you prepare yourself. So for the evening.
We wish you well, and all the guys. Mark won't be there, will he not? He'll still
Yeah,
not be-
no, Mark can't make this tour.
Very sad.
He said, yeah, it is sad, but you know, he's getting better. And the door, we always say the door is always open when Mark's ready to come
Good.
back to us.
You know, you've got renewed fame up here, if I could put it that way. There's a local drama here called Blue Lights
I know it well.
and the Two Cops.
Yeah.
Did you hear them?
So I got sent it, the clip, and
Yeah.
I'd never heard, in my ignorance, I'd never heard of the show. Now, what I will say is, I don't watch a lot of TV. I
Right,
watch
sort
sport.
of, okay.
So when Blue Lights came on my radar, it was the World of Rome Club. And I sent it to the lads in the WhatsApp group, and then I started watching it, and now we're completely addicted to it.
And he describes you as wee angels.
Yeah, we angels.
Yeah, wee
And
angels.
World of Rome is a stone cold banger. Stone cold banger. But it's a great show.
Nicky, good luck for the rest of and you and the boys.
Thank
Thanks a million.
Can I just say, and thank you to you, because you were there from day one all the way through on Kelly Live. We'll never forget everything you did, and I want to say thank you.
It was my privilege.
Thank you.
Nicky, thanks a million.